I think what first drew me to Children International and just wanting to help children in need in general was the fact that my dad actually grew up in the foster care system and didn't have parents that he knew. And I think something in me kind of took that on and felt like at some point in my adult life it was part of my calling, nurture children that, maybe just didn't have as much and was in need of knowing that there was someone out there who cared. When I was project manager, I was first of all, it was so far out of my comfort zone. I think I definitely got overwhelmed, may have gotten a little snippy with my fellow teammates, not intentionally, but it was just a whirlwind. And when our presentation was all done, I had the one and only meltdown I ever had on the show. I started sobbing because it hit me that if I did not win after being that exhausted and putting that much effort into it, if I did not win this money for Children International, I thought, what am I here for? And it really it was like the pinnacle, the culmination, the breaking point for me all rolled into one. And because ultimately being on the show is great. It's great to be on TV. It's fun to do press, but that in and of itself doesn't mean anything without the backbone of the charity aspect of the show. And that's really what ended up drawing me to want to be on the show. It was intense. Like, it's like sitting at home watching a game show and you know all the answers. It's like, I've seen this show on TV and you think, how hard could this be? And then you're there. And there's cameras rolling, and there's people out to get you, and you're playing beat the clock, and there's all these rules, and you're functioning on no sleep. And it's pretty wild. But in those moments, I very much kept connecting to Children International, the trip I took to the Philippines last year, especially the women that I met. I thought if those women could do what they do day in and day out for their kids, I can certainly be stressed out on a reality show. I remember when I first went to Manila and I was touring, and I had been sponsoring Tristan and Melly probably for about a year, and I'd been sending them my music and cassettes and batteries so that they could, have a little shake your love in their life. And I got to meet them and had them and their families to my hotel, and I had a suite and we had room service, and we ordered hamburgers. You would have thought we were at a five-star gourmet restaurant. I mean, it made me realize, oh my God, we as Americans take things for granted so much. Um, this was probably the most nourishing party meal these families have ever had. And it really also drove home the fact that by doing so little or things that we don't even think we're doing anything really, it can really affect them so much. I think even beyond like the monetary, um, things that, I think even beyond, the financial support and all of that, it makes people feel special to know that there's somebody overseas. And, look, I think everywhere around the world, people, as, crazy a state as our nation is in, people look up to America and Americans and feel very honored when we reach out our hand. And I really just felt like, they felt like a little prince and princess, my sponsor kids, when I first met them. The fact that there I was in person, this person who had been writing them letters, and I felt the same way. I was like, oh my God, you're real. I can hug you and see what the donations have done to change your life. And it was really, really amazing, and it just connected me that much more personally to the organization. Most children are not in touch with what death is, and so to have the very first and most formative years of your life in your childhood take place in a cemetery, I mean, that obviously forces kids to grow up way too quickly and kind of takes the innocence out of their childhood. And so that's what struck me The other thing that struck me was when I started to sing to them and found out that the one context that they put music in their life was in the context of music they heard at funeral processions that would process through their living quarters, which was the crypt they lived in. And then the other thing that really struck me though was that Helen was all smiles. I was like, here's a kid who doesn't even know, uh, maybe what she's missing. She just knows that her mother loves her and that she has a place to lay her head down at night. And that amazed me because, I've seen many entitled little bratty children around in our country that have 18,000 times more. And so that struck a chord with me. It really does change you forever, and you go back to your own living situation, and anything that ever goes wrong, I remember looking at my boyfriend one day. We ran out of hot water. Like the hot water wasn't working in our house, and it was like, who cares? Like, really, I had just come from where people never had hot water, didn't have a roof over their head, didn't have clean clothes, and you just you just kind of don't sweat the small stuff after a trip like that. I remember when I met Helen's mom and asked, what are your wishes for your children? And she really wanted them to have an education. And I think it's Helen who said she actually wanted to be a teacher, which is so interesting because she had never been to school, and now through sponsorship, they get to have that education. They get to go to the center and they have access to learning. And ultimately, the money that we all send to sponsors is a great support and a great help, but the ultimate is that they're becoming educated, and that will help them really rise out of poverty, and that will be what I think creates a permanent change in the living situation of so many. So it's pretty amazing that money goes towards providing education as well. That's so amazing to hear because again, like it's one thing to put band-aids on the problem or throw money at a problem and temporarily smooth it over, but to set people up in a way where they can produce something for themselves and sustain their own lifestyle, as humble as it is, it's 18,000 steps up from where they were. I mean, that's making real change. So for Children International to be providing people with that kind of independence and not dependence is like, you've just pushed me over the edge. You've inherited me for life because that's amazing. I'm lucky enough to be doing what I love in my career, singing, and that's been able to allow me the platform to get this word out. And if it wasn't me, it would be somebody else, but the word has to get out, and I'm just happy the word's out, for people to really take what they see on TV and those infomercials and close your eyes for a minute and imagine really being there, or just take my word for it because I was there, and I can be that connector for people who might not feel feel like it resonates with them. It's like I'm here to again be that channel to say it's real. This the poverty around the world, and I've experienced doing like the Rock in Rio festival for 150,000 people and staying at a glamorous hotel, and I ride around the corner in a limo, and suddenly the car is swarmed by children who don't have money and don't have food and don't have shoes. And I've just seen that everywhere around the world, time after time. And you know, um, with all of the many countries that Children International helps, it's just it's a necessary thing, and it's just amazing work you guys do.